and welcome to the Students in Free Enterprise SIFE Business Journal. My name is Madison Hallis, and I'm your host for today's program titled Leadership and Taking Chances. I am a student at the University of Findlay College of Business, majoring in International Business and Equine Business Management, and a member of the University of Findlay Students in Free Enterprise team. Thank you for joining us today. Our guest at this show is Kevin Moyer, the Executive Director of Toledo-Lucas Energy Efficiency and Alternative Energy Programs. Kevin graduated with the class of 1980 from the University of Findlay, back then the college. Kevin has 20 years of extensive tax equity, leasing, and structured financing experience across multiple industries such as power, generation, utility, alternative energy, high technology, transportation, industrial, and infrastructure. Among his experience, he has been the president of Principal Global Pathways, president of Capital Markets Groups, Dana Commercial Credit, president of Dana Asia Pacific, president of Dana Fluid Products Group, and corporate vice president of Dana E-Business and Global Information Technology Group. Kevin, thank you for being on our program today.
Thank you, Madison.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Can you name a person who has been a tremendous impact on you as a leader?
You know, it's really a tough one because I had so many good mentors all along. It started with actually a lot of the professors right here at University of Findlay. And early in my career, I was very fortunate to have some just very excellent managers and executives. Ed Schultz, who I worked with for 15 years as we grew a startup company, Dana Commercial Credit. Later on, Joe Maglicetti, who was the CEO of Dana Corporation, became a very highly valued mentor of mine.
Wonderful. Why and how did this person impact you as a person, as a leadership position? How did that make you successful?
Well, a lot of people think that leaders are born, which they can be, but a lot of leadership is really learned. I mean, it's learned through having good leader examples, good mentors, going through leadership training and management training. But a lot of it's actually learned by having good leader examples to follow and good processes. And as a large corporation, part of our responsibilities as managers and executives was actually to develop our talent. And so we needed to attract that talent, recruit them into the company, and then we had to develop that talent, promote that talent, give them different experiences. So I was part of that whole process, both as a recipient as well as someone that was a mentor to other fast trackers, up-and-comers that we were trying to develop and retain for the company.
Wonderful. What are the most important decisions you make as a leader of your organization, such as the Toledo-Lucas?
Well, I think the most important decisions that you make as a leader, and there is so many in any given day. I mean, you've got kind of the day-to-day operational decisions, and when I was running Dana Fluid Products, where I had 16 facilities around the world, you could have all kinds of things that erupt in a given day. You could have something happen with your supply chain. You could have an accident at your plant. All things that require fast action, fast decisions. Then you have kind of the more long-range stuff, which is making sure that you have a good strategy, a good vision. But where the rubber really meets the road for most leaders is developing action plans with their teams of people and implementing them and managing that process. And so there are, in the course of any year, a lot of key decisions that you need to make around investment and resource allocations. But on any given week or month, you're always making a lot of investment and resource allocation kind of decisions.
Very true. As an organization gets larger, there can be a tendency for the institution to dampen the inspiration. How do you keep this from happening?
At Dana, we had a very decentralized structure. And so as a business unit manager, I was expected to know my business, know my market, know my industry. And so I was accountable for delivering those results. And so one way that you keep a big enterprise from getting too stagnant or stale is to make sure that people have the responsibility and feel the responsibility for executing the strategy and action plans that they need, and not to hamper that process too much, while at the same time making sure that there is enough development of creativity and creative activity and make sure that there's investment going into research and product development so that the next stage of products is coming, and so you're always kind of freshening and refreshing and trying to develop new products and services. But one of the easiest ways of keeping it real is to actually give the people the responsibility to run the business and not make it too bureaucratic.
Yes. How do you encourage creative thinking within your organization as well?
That was something that was always a challenge, especially for, not to pick on a manufacturing company, but creative companies are often held out to be product companies, consumer product companies, and other entities like that. And for us, we would use a lot of the same techniques that you probably use in Silicon Valley and other places, like whiteboarding and brainstorming, some things that I'm sure they're still talking about in classes, but those are very real processes where you sit down and just, and maybe you take your team off-site so there's not the day-to-day distractions, but usually the best way to inspire creative thinking is to step out of the day-to-day for a day or a couple days or 3 days, maybe go off-site and just dedicate it to maybe some issues or some topics or some problems that you're trying to resolve. We did that at least once a year. And when I was on the World Operating Committee with Dana, that was an exercise that we went through quarterly, was to get together as an executive team and try to tackle some of those major issues and directions of the company and try to bring some creative solutions to the process. But you've got to be able to step out of the day-to-day and go through some dedicated mind release brainstorming type activities.
Like a team building exercise?
Could be team building, yep.
Okay. Where do the great ideas come from within your organization?
At Dana, we had a real strong belief that people were our most important asset. And so we wanted the ideas coming right off from the factory floor and bubbling up through the corporation. So we had this fundamental belief that the best ideas are going to come from the people that are actually touching the product and working with the business every day. As executives, we don't have all the best ideas, and so we made a concerted effort to get the ideas from the people. And I think that companies that flatten their organizations and give a lot of that responsibility to the people with appropriate direction and boundaries, I think you'd be surprised the results and the ideas that you get when you actually empower somebody to just do it.
Very nice. Which is most important in your organization of Dana, the mission, core values, or vision?
They're all very important. I think that any organization, if it's been around for a while, has a culture that evolves. That culture is always anchored with core values. So I'd have to say at the heart of it, it's probably the core values, because that's what drives us ethically as executives and managers. It's kind of the written code of the company, so to speak, that that you're going to stand for and operate under. The vision and the mission, and they get changed from time to time. The vision kind of sets out the overall direction of where you're headed. It gives people something that's to aspire to, something that's that you want to look towards. The mission is really all about kind of why you come to work every day and how you operate, and so they're very different, but I'd have to say core values are probably the anchor.
No, I understand. How do you encourage others in Dana to support your core values? We did an awful lot of training when people would come into the company. There were certain
5 or 6 courses that every person would have to take. And so we would basically teach all of our new recruits basically our core value system. We had something called the Dana Style of Management, the Dana Policy Sheet. So we wanted people to understand what all that meant, what it stood for, and what our expectations were of how they would conduct themselves in business with their coworkers, with their customers. And so we went through rigorous training in that area. And as a growing company at Dana Commercial Credit that was growing very fast, we had to even take that a step higher and do it even more frequently because of the number of new people that we were trying to acculturalize into the company.
Okay. Do you set aside specific times to cast vision to your employees and other leaders?
Yeah, I mean, I think most organizations try to do that at least once a year in terms of, we had a process in Dana where, and it started in the fall, you put together an operating budget and a plan, basically your business plan, get approval to basically run that and operate that. And then usually in the springtime, we would go through a strategic planning exercise or an update. You shouldn't have to rewrite your strategy every year. I mean, if it's a good strategy driven by a good vision, you're making kind of tweaks to the overall strategy. And so it really happens with the business planning. And then we would have we'd have kind of 2 major annual meetings for most of the managers. One was in December to really talk about the results of the year and kind of what was coming up in the following year. And then we'd have something called mid-years that was a chance to showcase each of the business's business plans and strategies, also showcase some of our talent, because we would bring in not only the general manager and the controller, but we would also showcase some of our young up-and-comers, give them a chance to present in front of executives. And so that was kind of our business planning and strategic planning process, and it really keyed around 4 meetings and activities, 1 on budget and plan, 2 on kind of communication meetings against results, and 1 around strategic vision.
Great.
And then, of course, typically there would be, monthly operating meetings, and then I would always have weekly meetings with the staff.
Would that also lead into how you help new employees understand the cultural of your organization?
Yeah, we felt it was really important to have regular people meetings. So each one of our plants had a people meeting every month. Each of our major offices had a people meeting every month. Because you'd think, okay, I've already told this story, or we've already talked about the results, but you'd be surprised. I mean, something will happen, or somebody will hear something or an event, and they'll still wonder, well, so does that still mean we're going to do this, or we're on track to do this? And so you constantly have to be communicating how you're doing, what's important, and keeping that message out in front of people, and giving them also the ability to ask questions too. And so through that process, you can also, if you're doing people meetings every month, we would also dedicate some of those meetings to reinforce our core value system.
Wonderful. When you're faced with 2 qualified individuals who are candidates for a position, how do you determine which one you'll hire?
I think that we talked a lot this morning in some of the sessions with the students about the soft skills. I mean, I think that if you've got a good education and so let's say they're in front of you with both a good education and both good grade point averages, then I might look at their experiences. So if one student was filled with international abroad and co-ops and internships and the other one didn't, then I would kind of give the nod towards the person that had some of these extra experiences. Above that, I mean, we tried to recruit people into the company using internships so that we could get a real look at that person and how they operate, how they thought, how they acted. And it's sometimes hard if you're just interviewing somebody and you get maybe 2 interviews, maybe 3 interviews with them, but you really have to dive into and try to get to know them personally, try to figure out what makes them tick. I mean, try to figure out what their core values are. Ask them some pretty tough questions. How did you face this problem? Or and see what kind of answers come out of that. Because at the end of the day, I'm looking for somebody that I'm confident is going to be a good team member and is going to mesh well with the organization. And then beyond that, it kind of gets into some of the softer skill areas, which I actually call hard skills. And it's things like what else are they bringing to the table? You know, does this candidate maybe have some more experience in something like, let's say I'm looking for investment analysis in this particular position. If this individual has a little more of that in their background, then I might lean more that way. Or if I was looking for project management or business development, I'd start to really dive into the persona, the person, and the experiences.
So really creating a relationship with someone.
Yeah.
And doing a lot of traveling and studying abroad.
Yep. Yeah, the networking, the relationships are very important as well as your experiences here.
Yes. What is one characteristic that you believe every leader should possess?
I think every leader needs a strong character, and what I mean about that is a high sense of ethicalness and honesty. I mean, you've got to have that at your core. You can't deviate from that if you're going to lead people. So I would probably start with that.
Is that one of the challenges facing leaders today?
I don't necessarily think so. I mean, I think, you know, we can all think of examples of bad leaders or leaders that went astray.
Enron, such as.
Enron. But, you know, I've been in business a long time, and so I've been through 4 different economic cycles, and a lot of those cycles were created by different booms and busts. And so I'm sure a lot of those Enron guys probably thought they were doing the right thing, but there's also a lot of them that got caught up in the greed and the excess, and we see the same thing happening in the financial markets as well, where you find over time that excesses build up. And I think, you know, if you're going to succeed through all that, you have to be very steady in your approach, and you can't get too caught up with what's popular at the moment and really kind of cut through that. Because if you don't, then you might get caught in one of those situations. It might not be unethical, but it might mean that you made a bad decision because let's say you overinvested. I mean, there were a lot of deals that just went bad because it was based on flawed thinking to begin with. We've seen it happen with investments that were over-leveraged. Because one thing that will happen over time is that really smart people will think that they finally have everything all figured out and that it's going to be different this time, or that some fundamental changes happen within the markets that means that what's happened in the past will no longer happen again. And once you start getting into that kind of analysis, especially when you're making business decisions and investments, you've left yourself no flexibility or room to operate, and that's where you start having issues. And then, of course, there's the stuff that's just plain wrong. It's criminal.
Yeah. What are you doing to ensure you continue to grow and develop as a leader?
You know, I'm always, I think one of the most important things you can do is continue to be intellectually curious. And I think I'm kind of naturally that type of person. And so, you know, I'm always looking out there for examples of best practices that I might be able to borrow. You know, and that's one way of keeping yourself fresh is if you're in a functional area or a business, looking around you and see, well, what's the best examples out there of businesses that are doing that, and actually study them to see what you can extract out of that. Other than that, you know, I go to a lot of a wide variety of industry sessions. It's a good opportunity to network, but if I'm really interested in one area or another, like I'm kind of back into the clean tech world. One of the easiest ways to get immersed is just go to a really good industry conference. But over the last couple of years, I've kind of refreshed some of my M&A skills and some other things. It's something that you continually have to do.
I understand. Any closing remarks on being a successful leader in today's rapidly changing society?
What I told the students was, I think one of the most important things for them to remember as they were leaving college and going to their job is that they need to think like a manager or a leader from day one. They need to be aware of what the challenges are that are facing their boss, their business unit, their company, their industry, and they've got to be part of the solution, part of the people that are helping to figure things out, getting things done. I think that's one of the most important things to remember as you're leaving here, and realize that you're really accountable for yourself and your own results. I'm not accountable for it. The accountability is really with you, and so if you take that sense of accountability and that sense of importance about what you're going to do, and really want to make a contribution, if you're one of the people that can figure out the solution to the problems and deliver the results, you will always do well.
Great, thank you. Again, Kevin, thank you for having the time with us today.
Thank you, Madison.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for joining us today. This was Madison House from the University of Findlay, Students in Free Enterprise. Please stay tuned for our future SIFE business journals. Thank you.